You know, it's kind of funny. Sometimes in order to change certain characteristics of yourself, in order to change certain behaviors, you don't really have to do anything. And this is something that I've kind of picked up on over the years doing personal development for so long. Sometimes the best way to change something about yourself is just by simply being aware of it, and by shining that awareness on it when it happens. So, for example, like, let's say you have really poor eye contact with people. You know, this is one that a lot of us struggle with. I struggled with this one too. Instead of just saying to yourself, like, okay, like right now, this is where everything changes. I'm only gonna have great eye contact going forward. And you know, you try to have a lot of discipline, and you're really trying hard to like look at people in the eyes, which in a way is kind of coming from a disingenuous place, a little inauthentic, because you're just like trying to force it, I guess. But what you can really do instead is to just sort of notice when the eye contact's not good. And just be very aware of it. And what's going to happen is that the more that you do this, without feeling guilty, without shaming yourself, without getting mad at yourself, just by simply being aware every time something happens, every time you do that one thing that you don't want to do, in this example, eye contact, and you notice it every time, and you put a lot of awareness on the fact that you're doing it, what happens is you'll automatically, like, it'll kind of just correct itself. And over a long period of time, months, years even, you'll kind of notice like, wow, it kind of like, I just got better at holding eye contact with people the more that I noticed every time that I was, every time that I didn't have good eye contact. The more that I noticed it, the more that I was aware of it, it sort of just kind of corrected itself in a way, and you got better at it. And you'll notice this, if you're really dedicated to personal development, like I am, like I've always been, over a longer period of time, you'll kind of reflect back, and you'll see like, wow, compared to like where I used to be, now my eye contact is really good. I used to not even be able to look at people when they would speak to me. I'd always be looking down, I'd be looking away, my eyes would be darting around the room like this. But then you kind of see over a longer period of time that it kind of changed. I mean, you do have to put in a little bit of effort. I'm not saying that just noticing it without, but I guess the point is you kind of just make smaller, more natural changes to something like that. And you get better over a period of time by practicing it slowly. Instead of just thinking you're going to go from 0 to 100 having like terrible eye contact with people, now all of a sudden you're going to have great eye contact. Changing your behaviors, changing the way that you think, your thought processes, things like, trying to gain confidence, self-love, these things are never going to come from you just like watching one YouTube video and then trying to implement what they say. It's going to come from these types of skills, the types of skills that you need, like being confident and being like very authentic and genuine around people, is something that it could take months, even years of practice, of noticing every time you're inauthentic, noticing every time that you look down in conversation. But the important part is to not beat yourself up over it, and instead to just simply be aware of it. And this is why I really highly recommend, keeping a journal. My next video is actually going to be about journaling, about how to journal properly, is to really keep track of certain things like this. Make a list of all the behaviors that you wish to change, or things that you wish you could be better at, and track your progress each day and stay on top of it. And I can almost assure you that over a longer period of time, you're going to notice an improvement if you really dedicate yourself to it. See, the problem is a lot of people, especially in like spirituality and personal development, they just might put a little bit of time and then they'll give up, or they get discouraged, or they feel like they're not making any kind of progress. But it's very long term. You got to understand, it's always like an uphill thing. And that's why you might see a lot of people, like coaches and stuff, offering like, oh, in 12 weeks you'll become the best version of yourself and shit like that. And I'm not saying that they won't teach you some of the things that you need, but at the end of the day, like 12 weeks is probably not enough, although maybe it could be for some people if you really dedicate your time to it. But it's kind of weird because like I kind of just see for myself, like I think back to a lot of the ways that I used to behave, and the ways, especially the ways that I used to like kind of people please, and the ways that I used to let people treat me and stuff like that, and I just like don't do any of that anymore. And I realize that it came from just really just being aware of the behaviors and making a commitment to changing them and dedicating myself to it. You know, people pleasing was another one. I didn't even realize I was doing it. You know, especially if you're kind of like a needy sort of nice guy, that's a huge one. You got to notice when you're doing that. And again, the more you become aware of it, and the more that you become comfortable with the discomfort that comes with being honest with yourself about it, because that's one of the hardest parts. Like being honest about the fact that you don't have great eye contact probably isn't going to be that uncomfortable, but being honest about the fact that you're a people pleaser and that you have a lot of sort of beta male, like nice guy behaviors that are really unhealthy and toxic for you, that's a harder one to admit. And a lot of people don't ever want to admit it, and they want to ignore it when other people are trying to tell them you know, that it's a problem. They don't want to hear it, and they never change. And then they sit there and wonder, like, why am I not happy? Or why do I feel this way? Why do I keep getting mistreated by other people? It's because you don't know how to set any fucking boundaries. Setting boundaries is a huge one, you know? So for example, like, I'm trying to think of like an example that would make sense. You know, if you're dating a girl and she asks you to do all this ridiculous stuff for her, like, that you can tell she's just probably testing you or using you, you know, being able to say no to that, or being able to say no when, you know, when your job asks you to work overtime when you really don't want to. It's never easy to kind of put your foot down in these situations, but those little situations, and being aware of when you say, and even if you do still people please, just being aware of it and being like, oh, I did it again, not demonizing yourself for it, but just noticing it that you did it, and keep noticing it every time. I promise you, it'll slowly start to correct itself, because you'll get kind of sick of, because if you shine awareness on a behavior that you don't like, eventually you're going to get tired of living that way, because a lot of people operate that way very unconsciously, you know, especially like nice guys and stuff like that. Like, they don't realize most of the time what they're even doing, or they do, or they just kind of suppress it. They don't want to be honest with themselves. But the more that you're aware of it, and the more that you keep, you know, reminding yourself of it, like eventually you're going to get fed up with yourself, and you're not going to want to live that way, and it's going to change. It has to. And this is why awareness is key. You know, I developed a lot of personal, like, introspection, and a lot of being able to kind of be honest with myself about a lot of that stuff, you know, through really having a regular mindfulness practice, which I highly recommend. If you're not practicing mindfulness meditation on a daily basis, you need to get on that immediately. That's where everything started for me. That's when I really started to change. You know, that's when the real inner work began. Because what mindfulness does is it puts your mind more on reality, as opposed to always living in your head and thinking about the past and things that you can't change, and, you know, worrying about the future. Mindfulness is only going to put you in what's actually happening and what's real. And highly recommended practice by pretty much anybody that was ever important. So you can literally just search on YouTube guided mindfulness practice. There's 100,000 of them. Find one that you like, find one that you think you're going to stick to and commit to every day, and that's really a good way of training sort of that awareness muscle inside of you. But yeah, that's basically just the point for today. Sometimes just being aware of the behaviors you want to change, noticing when you're doing them, will help you to correct the behaviors themselves. without you even really having to do much, without you having to kind of be fake and trying to act like someone you're not. Because that's what's going to happen. Like, if you try too hard to act confident, it's going to be very disingenuous and fake, because again, that's not something that you can just go from overnight. You can't just go from being unconfident to confident in, you know, a day. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of time and practice if you truly want to change. So it's a little bit of a ramble, just kind of a thought I had. I hope you guys found it useful. Let me know what you guys think below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.